Hi there, everybody. It's Poca. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 8 of PocaTV Live. This month, my very, very special guest is award-winning scientist at NASA, Jim Spann. So if everybody's ready, here we go.
Give me this. Give me that. Give me this.
So hi again, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. It's a little bit shady weather here in the Netherlands, but who cares? It's time for PocaTV Live, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to this episode. Welcome, one and all. Thank you for joining. Remember, I do love it when you leave a comment and participate in the program. That's the nicest thing for you to do. I have a very special guest today. His name is Jim Spann. I've known him for, I think it must be 45 years now. We met in Brazil when we were both at the American School of Recife, or Escola Americana do Recife, EAR for short. And he was quite older than he still is, a little bit older than I am. So he was one of the seniors while I was still in grade class, and his brother was in my class, and this is how we met up. Jim Spann has had a really, really interesting life so far, and I will be diving into it with him. And you, my precious viewers, as always, thank you for joining. And if you can find it in your heart, why not subscribe to the PocaTV channel, whether that be on YouTube or on Facebook. We're live on both, and we're even live on Twitter, but I don't think many people watch it there. So welcome once again. Most of you know how the show starts every month. The last Friday of each month is when I go live. And I always start out with a livocation to my sister Aisha. Aisha, 6 year my junior. And she passed away over 10 years ago. She had cancer and died. And she's still with me every day of my life. And she was the one who came up with the idea of going live on PocaTV. And really, at the time, that was an impossible thing to even think of. But she did come up with it. And here we are, going live, livocating each and every one of these episodes to her. Lovely picture of her in happy times. So that's the way we like to remember her. Aisha, forever. You also know by now that I start the program with a short clip of what went on last month. Last month was Murphy's Law, putting it mildly. Facebook kicked us out. Not so many viewers. We had sound problems, but it was a really interesting program with my former colleague, Step Fase, a journalist who made a life for herself as a correspondent in first Indonesia, then Russia. And she's been reporting on everything Belarus and everything Ukraine these past months as well. Stuck in the Netherlands as she is because of COVID, she still can branch out to those areas and report for Al Jazeera, which is where she works now. And we had a whole lovely conversation about the role of journalism in everyday life. And here's one of the many things that she had to say.
Like, there is no sense among the population that journalism is important. Mm-hmm. They don't seem to understand why the press is here, what we are doing. And I think that's something that needs to be better explained. And that's why I was also thinking what needs to be done is basically give a training in schools about the role of the media. What is the media about? What is the role of the media? Controlling the power. We have to make sure that people know what's going on, give the information, but also, give a balance to the voices in power.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand anymore about journalism.
So that was Step Faze last month with really profound thoughts on what journalism is and how people view it these days. I wish you would go to my YouTube channel and watch the program I did with her, because really it was really very, very interesting. When you have time, first watch this show. Remember that. I'm seeing a comment already. That's my sister Adrienne. Greetings, Poca. Well, greetings, Adrienne. Lovely of you to join me. And you know Jim Spann as well. So I'm sure you're very interested in what he has to say. A shout out to all my regular viewers who are here. Mom, Melvin, Adam, Adrienne. And I'm sure I have many new viewers this time, because I did some spamming in the old EAR section of my life. So hopefully Clay Spann is here as well, with his group of students watching this program, learning the stuff that his brother has to say. Hi, Clay. Thank you for joining. Hi, group of students. Hope you learned stuff. Grady Spann is probably here as well. Grady is Jim's younger brother, who was in my class when we were at the American school in Recife. Glenda Miller is probably here. Marjorie Paranagua, maybe even Nancy Miller. I know Rod Cullum is going to be watching in a rerun. Thank you for your lovely words, Rod. I really appreciate that. And John Trott is probably here. There's my other sister showing up, Angelique. Greetings from my other sis. Hi there, Angelique. Lovely of you to join. So everybody's set, I guess, for the one and only guest today. And let me shortly introduce him to you. He is an American person, and I will be going into his early days with you when he joins me here in the program. Please welcome Jim Spann. Hi there, Jim.
Hello.
It's so good to see you. Thank you for taking time to join me on this program. How are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm feeling quite well, quite well. I
Yeah?
just really appreciate the opportunity just to share and get to visit. And your introduction kind of makes me feel like I'm in a homecoming back at school again.
Well, it's going to be a little bit of that, but it's also going to be a little bit of what you do these days. But
Yep.
we'll get into that when we do. What part of the States are you in? I don't seem to remember.
Well, right now I'm living in the Washington, D.C. area, since I work at NASA headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm in the D.C. area and just enjoying a lovely day. I'm looking out and blue skies and some clouds. We have a little weather, but it's really quite nice.
It's Earth weather, though, not space weather,
That's
which we will definitely get into. I hope I'll understand half of what you have to say. I think I will. So no work for you today, I expect.
Well, I am working. I was working earlier today with colleagues around the country and even in Europe. Mm-hmm. And I'll probably do a little bit more work this afternoon, but looking forward to heading into the weekend to relax a little bit.
Aren't we all? Before we do that, though, we're going to have a little trip down memory lane, you and I. As I said in the intro, we met in Brazil in the 1970s. That was. My family lived there for 3 years. Your family lived there quite a bit longer, I believe. Yes.
Well, I lived there 13 years growing up, and after graduating high school, returning to the U.S. But my parents lived there for 32 or 33 years.
Wow.
Many years. Yes, that was their career.
And they were? What was their work?
So my parents were missionaries. My father was really focused in music. His focus was the choral music, and he worked in the local seminary there, but was also very active, as you know, with EAR, with all of us kids going through school.
He definitely was. Yeah.
Yep. So that's what he did. And Mom also taught at the seminary, but she had a handful, because we, not only us three boys and my younger sister, Suzanne, mm-hmm. but also we had several other missionary kids whose parents lived in the interior of Brazil, during the school year, they lived at our house, and we primarily had the boys, and the Millers had the girls. So
Exactly. That's the way I remember. So this picture is you with your brothers, and that's your dad.
yes, that's Dad. That's when we arrived in Recife, maybe in 1963
Mhm.
time frame,
Yeah. So what kind of, so that's you with the circle around your head,
right?
and the other two boys in the middle is probably Grady, and on the
Yep,
right is Clay.
correct.
What do you remember of those days? What kind of childhood did you have?
Oh my goodness, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Um,
Really? Yeah.
we had a great time. Life back then was very different than it is today. It was a little bit more idyllic, and
Hmm.
in the sense that we had a lot of freedom. We played in the neighborhood, developed good friendships, some even today lasting.
Yeah.
Not only in the neighborhood, but then we Recife, as you know, is on the coast, and so oftentimes we would go to the beach or take camping excursions. My brothers and their friends were really into the surfing scene. I enjoyed playing soccer and team handball a lot more. But they,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
You,
we
you
had a
you
great.
were, the whole family span was totally sporty. All of you guys were in all of the teams. So I do remember that. Those were great days, weren't they? And the weather always seemed to be great for some
Oh,
reason.
it was awesome. We spent a lot of time outside,
Yeah.
and I just enjoyed being outside and enjoying just kind of the very natural beauty that is Brazil. And
Yeah.
so,
And the lovely people as well.
oh, the
Yeah,
people are fabulous.
they are.
Brazil, the people are very simpático. They're very warming and
Yeah.
hospitable, very
Yes.
friendly.
And they don't make it a big problem if you don't speak their language
Nope.
yet. They'll teach you, and they'll teach you in the nicest way. I remember that. Yeah. Moving on in the pictures here. So this is you. Tell us about this age, about this boy.
So
What
this,
kind of boy?
so uh, I went to Brazil when I was 5, and so as I was growing up, in the other part of my school age years, I actually went to a Brazilian school, the Colégio Americano Batista,
Hmm.
and I was in Brazilian. And this picture was from that era. That was our uniform,
Hmm.
and so my first schooling, a formal schooling, was really in the Brazilian school.
Yeah.
And so that's where I learned a lot about what it meant to be Brazilian,
Hmm.
um, the language, just in so many ways in that formative years, it ends up influencing how you are today.
Yeah.
And so I picked up a lot of the Brazilian ways of interacting with people and getting things done and being kind of going with the flow a little bit as opposed to trying
Yeah.
to force things.
Which is what we do in Western countries, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that little bit more mellow approach has, I think, served me well, even in a very technical environment that NASA is. So I give credit to those formative years in elementary school in the
Yeah.
Brazilian school system
Hmm.
for that.
A Baptist school?
I'm sorry.
A Baptist school?
Yes, it was. Yes, that's correct. It was a Baptist school. It was a Baptist school, but it wasn't a public school, but it wasn't very strict Baptist or anything like that.
Hmm.
It was just the Baptists kind of owned it and ran the system, but it was open to everyone.
Right. Right.
And I had fond memories. It was a good time back then.
Yes, it definitely was. We're moving on a bit to the years when we actually met. This is you. I think it was in 11th grade.
Well,
Being totally equitable with the height changes. That was way before the time.
yeah. Well, this is actually our senior picture.
Is this a senior picture?
This
Yeah.
is the senior, and we, as a class, wanted to make everybody at the same level. And of course, you see John Trott, who's 2 people
Very tall
over,
guy.
very
Yeah.
tall,
Yeah.
and so he kind of set the standard. And so we all kind of had to adjust to him.
Right.
But I thought it was a great idea. I still love that picture because of exactly that. And each one of those individuals, was a very important part of my life. And so,
Do you still know most of them? Do you still?
I have been in touch with all of them. The ones that I have most trouble getting in touch with are on the bookends. Junior, off to the right.
Yeah.
Junior Alcoverde.
Yes.
Was actually the only Brazilian in our class.
Yeah.
And then Ray Fleet on the right, or on the left, sitting on the blocks. I have not communicated a whole lot with them, but everyone else I've stayed in touch with. So it's been a real pleasure.
So let's name them from left to right. So that's Ray Fleet, Daniel Hickey, Marcia Cook.
Right.
Then it's you.
Yeah. Nancy Miller Johnson, John Trott, Gonen Ziv, and Jose Loyo Alcoverde Jr.
Yes. And from those that you still know, are they all doing well?
Oh, yes, very well. Danny and I get together often as we can. He still lives in Little Rock. I stay in touch with Marcy and Roger Smith. So she's married to Roger, who was a year older than we were. And they are still missionaries in Brazil. I think they're on furlough in the U.S. right now, but they've gone back and forth.
Yeah.
Nancy lives in Austin, Texas, and is married
on a ranch, I believe, or is that Marjorie?
Well, Margie's on the ranch, the younger sister. Nancy now lives in Austin proper, along with Uncle Dave and Aunt Glenda there. And Paul Miller has been spending some time there as well.
Yeah.
John is in Rhode Island, still working for an insurance company. And so we stay in touch a little bit.
Yeah.
And most recently, we've gotten back in contact with Gonen.
Gonen Ziv from Israel.
Ziv, yes, from Israel. Thanks to the efforts of Rod Collum and Danny Hickey, actually really making it possible for us to tag up with Gonen. And so we've had a couple of interactions here recently, and he's in New York is my understanding.
That's lovely. And we even had two little reunions on Zoom in the past couple of months, which is how you and I got back in touch.
Right.
So wonderful technology that we can all reach out to each other these days.
Isn't it? Yes.
Yeah. Let's see, there's comments coming in already. Jim, let me see who's there and what they are saying. We've got Annemieke, who's a Dutch person. There's Clay. He's saying, Clay saying, "Oi, Aldit, tell Jim hi." So hi from your brother. Hi, Clay. Great. Everything's working out. Let's see. We got Annemieke, who's a Dutch friend of mine, saying, "As always, watching." And Adrienne and Clay are already interacting. So that's going really well. Everything's going hunky-dory, I must say. Let's get rid of this one. Next picture is, this is, like I was saying, EAR was really huge in sports, wasn't it?
Yeah, we all enjoyed doing that, and being such an international school, with probably half the student population being American, maybe a quarter Brazilian, and then the other quarter was just from all over the globe.
All over, like ourselves. Yes,
exactly. And it was just awesome in that way. And so the sports, both for the girls and the boys, was reflective of that. The school was small enough that everybody could participate. You didn't have to be really great or at anything. You could participate. Right. And
everybody had a sport they could do.
Exactly. And everybody was included. And you can see a huge range of ages also, because it was a small school. And so it really gave for a really nice community, not only on the sports field, but we also had other activities that we
theater, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
ballet.
We had a talent show, and and in fact, I remember Melvin and I playing in one of those talent shows.
My brother Melvin, yes,
exactly. And
do you remember what the play was about?
Well, it wasn't a play. We played a song, and it was a John Denver song. I think. Rocky Mountain High, I believe it
Both of you on
was.
guitar.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that. Oh, wow. That's a blast from the past.
It was awesome.
Yeah. I
And of course,
remember at some point there were only 156 students from kindergarten to 12th grade. So that was
yep.
our class where Grady and I were in was one of the biggest classes, and there were only 11 students in it. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And as Grady likes to say, he was the best looking guy in that class because he was the only boy.
That's right. Poor Grady. He had all those girls around him. He was really popular. Grady, if you're watching, you were really popular. All the girls liked Grady, but as Jim says, you were the only boy in the class. Yeah. So this is the EAR years. How did it go from there? Suddenly we see you in college.
Yeah. So I graduated from EAR. I came back to the U.S. And I went to a very small Baptist school back in the U.S. Actually, Danny and I were roommates for 3 years.
Really?
At this small private Baptist school called Ouachita Baptist University.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually a good thing for me because for those of us who'd spent so many years overseas, we came back to the U.S. and I look American, I talk like an American, but inside I was Brazilian.
Yeah. So how did that go?
It was a very interesting transition. And so going to a very small school that actually tailored a lot of its or made it very easy for other missionary kids and other international students to come to be able to adapt to the U.S. American way of life. It made it very easy, and it was a very good experience for me.
Yeah.
Now I have to share that not all my friends transitioned quite as easily as I mean, sometimes people have different ways of transitioning, and some did very easily and others less so, but for me it worked out very well.
Yeah.
And,
so what are the things that you bumped up against when you suddenly found yourself in that environment?
Oh, it was from as simple as, how do you handle money? I mean, I didn't know what a check was, and I remember very vividly going to play a pool one day, and it was like 35 cents an hour, and so I played 2 hours and I wrote a check for 70 cents. I didn't know what to do, and so and then I had to learn how to drive. And so that was an experience in itself. And then dating, quite frankly, in Brazil, dating was, well, you didn't date, you kind of had a girlfriend, and you just didn't go out with a lot of different people, or at least I didn't. Maybe that's a personal problem of mine. I don't know, but anyway.
Probably not. Maybe I have the same problem.
So, you just kind of had one girlfriend, and then, but then come to the US, it's like they go out and dates, and that I couldn't understand that at all.
To be honest, I had the same problem when I arrived in the Netherlands to find all this what we call freedom of dating, and it never really appealed to me. So maybe we are just too Brazilian for that.
And then the humor also was very different. The Brazilian humor and the American humor was very different. And I also remember going to see a movie, and this is going to date me, but the movie was called Blazing Saddles, and it was a very Americana movie, very American humor with a lot of references to things in America. And I remember Danny Hickey and I walking out of the theater going, what a crazy place is this? Why would people pay money to go see something like that?
I've never heard of the movie. I think I'll need to Google it.
Well,
or just leave it at that.
It was a classic humorous movie, but anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Keep those comments coming, people. Let's see if there's anything new in here as yet. Not for this moment, but it will come. Okay. It will definitely come. So here you are in college, doing what?
So I'm in college. To be honest with you, I was more interested in playing soccer than going to school. Now, I've always been a good student, so it wasn't like I was failing, but I was on the soccer team. And then there's a group formed, and you see the pictures there on the left hand, and I played bass for the group, and it was
Bass.
I played bass guitar.
Oh, I'm a bass girl.
Oh, well, there you go. It's
Hmm.
I enjoyed playing bass a lot. It was and the group was really a singing group, and included well, the members there, actually nobody else that you would know. Danny wasn't into that, but anyway, so we would sing on the weekends. Sometimes we go to, this was a private Baptist school, so we often went to sing for other youth groups at different places.
What kind of music?
It was a contemporary Christian music.
Right.
That was kind of coming onto the scene at that point. We actually did play a couple of songs that I wrote, which I thought was, and so I would play guitar for those. But most of it was really just contemporary. We made a lot of good friendships, and got to travel around a little bit to do that.
Mhm.
But then I also, was enjoying the classes, and at some point, I think it was after my second year, they came and said, Jim, you actually have to choose what you're going to major in, because you
Right.
just can't go to school. And I thought, well, shoot, I don't really know what I want to do. What am I good at, and what do I enjoy? And I think this is good advice to anybody. What are you good at, and what do you enjoy? And I was really good at science, and I was really good at math. And I said, well, okay, those will be my majors. And that's what I stuck with. And so
Yeah.
that's what so really at the end of the 4 years in college, I took my college a little bit more seriously and began to study and, make sure that I actually learned what I was supposed to be learning.
Exactly. But did you at that time have any idea that you'd end up being, like I introduced you, the award-winning
well,
NASA scientist, James
and
Spann?
and no way in the world. Be honest with you, I had many friends who kind of really enjoyed the space program, and of course, that was the Apollo era. We landed on the moon in '69, and had many Apollo missions in the '70s when we were down in Brazil. And I remember watching those on TV, but I was not a space cadet, as they say. That was not. I really wasn't even. I mean, I really enjoyed science, and I loved my EAR teachers. Mr. Coster.
Mr. Coster,
Oh,
yes.
he had a big influence.
He's so very proud of you, as are we all, I must say. Yes.
But so anyway, so no, I did not. And in fact, when I finished college, again, I was still trying to figure out how to live in the U.S. And I said, oh, gee, I'm not ready for a job. I don't know. What do we do now? Oh, how about going to graduate school? That's what I'll do. I'll apply to graduate school and see if I can get in physics, which is what I majored in physics and math, and see if I can get into graduate school in physics. And that's what I did.
And then some epiphany came to you that this was the right way for you to go?
Well, at some point, yes. It was probably the second year in graduate school. We kind of paired, you go through the master's degree, that's what you do in graduate school. And my professor, or one of the professors in modern physics, Dr. Richardson, approached me and said, you seem to have a good knack for the lab. And I just got a grant from the National Science Foundation in the US to study the physics of aerosols. Why don't you become a graduate student of mine? So that was, I won't say it was an epiphany, but it was certainly one of those key pivot points in our lives that point us into a particular direction.
Exactly. And all you need to do is follow.
And that's what I did. And Dr. Richardson is a fabulous person, and he's a very, very good instrumentalist and a laboratory scientist. And those are a little bit more rare. We have a lot of data analysis and a lot of theorists and everything, but a good instrumentalist that understands how things work and how to get research out of observations and measurements are hard to come by.
Yeah.
And so he trained me well in doing that. And again, which prepared me for, what I eventually ended up doing at NASA, which again was not on the radar screen.
No, it just kind of
Not at
happened.
all.
It was your destiny, probably.
Well, I think so. I think, doors open and you walk through them as the opportunity presents itself. And that's what I did.
And that's what you did. Well, we're going to talk about that fantastic career of yours in a moment, but we are now at the segment that most of my guests really dislike. It's a little segment called On the Spot, in which I ask you 5 quick questions and actually give you 2 options from which to choose, and you are not allowed to elaborate until we've done all of them. And then you can choose 2 on which you wish to elaborate. So can you do that, you think? Can you undergo this?
I'm up for it. I'm ready.
All right. Let's start with question 1. You have to choose, right? Earth or space?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, I can't elaborate. I'm going to go space.
Space. Okay. Remember the questions so you can choose which 2 to elaborate on. Question number 2. Faith or science?
Oh, I can't choose between those 2.
You must.
That is unfair.
I know.
Okay. Oh my goodness. I'm going to go with faith.
You have to go with faith. Why?
Yes.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Big Bang or black hole?
Oh, these are awesome.
I know, they're horrible.
I'm going to go with Big Bang.
Good. Question number 4 now. Humans must colonize other planets to survive. Yes or no?
I'm going to say no.
I'm happy you say no. And here's the worst question of all, number 5. What, James Spann, is the one thing that you would never, ever, ever do again?
Oh, man. What would I never, ever do again is, that is so hard because I love everything I do. I mean, I just enjoy it.
Yeah, but it can be something from the past. We really need an answer.
I know you do. Okay, I know what it is. I would never have quit the state handball team.
Because you did. You shouldn't have.
I chose to. Well, actually, no. Okay, that's not true. Actually, I would have made the same choice again because I chose to spend time with my family because I was getting ready to leave Brazil. Okay, so that's not a good one.
Okay.
Oh, shoot.
I had the same thing, by the way. I had the same problem when we left.
Yeah.
I made it to the state team and then we left.
Okay, I know what it is.
Okay, go ahead.
That very first picture you showed when we had my 3 brothers, and it's in black and white. That picture, I'm wearing some socks.
Let me go back to the picture. Yes, socks.
The socks are red and white.
Yeah.
And those are nautical socks.
That's a team.
And I am a Sporte Clube do Recife guy, not nautical. And so I want all of my sport club friends to forgive me. I did not know what I was doing at that age. I'm going to blame it on my innocence and my dad because he bought the socks.
Exactly. Blame it on your dad.
I will never wear those. I will never wear nautical socks again. Now, I probably made half the people in Brazil really mad at me, but the other half are happy with me. So I'm good.
So what colors did Nautico have?
White and red.
What was your team?
Sporty, and we are red and black.
Red and black. You should have told me. I could have photoshopped the picture.
Well, you did have the other picture there with that school picture, and I did have red and black jersey on.
You
So,
did, you did, you did. So
yeah.
you made up for that. What shall we say? That
Faux pas.
faux pas. That's the exact word I was looking for. So, which of the 5 questions would you like to elaborate on,
Oh,
if any?
well, they were all great questions. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do Earth in space.
Earth and space, and you chose.
Oh no, I
space.
chose Earth. The other one, no, I was going to do faith and Earth. That's what it was. Yeah,
Faith or science was the
yeah,
question.
yeah, right.
And you chose faith.
Well, okay, so actually, I think that's a very unfair question
It
because
is.
you do not have to choose between faith and science. And the reason I chose faith is because I believe that, well, I'm a person of faith, but the main thing is that they are good. They go hand in hand. And I think, I mean, I'm a science guy. And I believe in the scientific method, but science is just our human way of explaining of what we see. And kind of, and from my perspective, faith is kind of helps us understand the why we're here and, you know, what are humans about. And science is helps us understand how things work. But they're totally complementary and connected.
Complementary, yeah. So what would you say to those people who say that science is actually the reason why one shouldn't have faith? Because science is all about rules and regulations, and faith is just a feeling, is what they say.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the way I would respond. And you know, I have conversations with friends on occasion about this, but the way I see it is, even in science, you begin your science with some assumptions that you can't explain, but you just have to start somewhere, you know. And in some ways, that is kind of a demonstration. Faith is probably not the right word, but you have to start with some assumptions which you believe are true, and then based on that, then the theories and the logic and everything follows from that.
Can you give us a really easy example of what you're saying?
Let's see. I would say something like 1 + 1 is 2. How do we know that's true?
We just assume it is.
Well, that's based on a mathematical construct that we have developed that uses certain levels of logic and definitions of what 1 means and what 2 means. Well, where does that come from? Well, that's just our way of explaining what things are. And we just assume that 1 + 1 is 2. And, you know, in a base 10 system, I mean, there are all sorts of things that kind of follow along with that, but they're all based on kind of these rules that we have established. And those rules oftentimes are well, they start out as a rule or a hypothesis or sometime, and then science, the job is to prove, is that rule correct or not?
Exactly.
And we do that, and then once we understand, we've proven that correct, now what's the next thing? We've you know, the thing in science, once you discover something or demonstrate something, you've actually raised 3 other questions that now you've got to go answer. And so it's just a continuous thing, but it's based on kind of basic assumptions that as humans we develop.
Do you think it's a human need to make order out of disorder?
Yeah.
And to come up with little rules and things, ways of seeing things? Is that a basic human need?
I think it's a basic human need, and I think it's actually a tremendous privilege. And part of the reason I think we need to be very orderly and that sort of thing is because we are so curious and we are always learning new things. And if we don't have a way to kind of compartmentalize or organize all of these things that we learn because we're curious, it'll end up being, we can't handle it.
Right.
Our brains, even though they are incredible machines, just great computers, there is a limit to how much we can absorb and manage all at the same time. So we have to, in order to make progress, we do have to organize things.
Yeah.
So that we can go on to the next step. So I think that's part of what drives science. That's what part of drives our curiosity, and the organization is one of the key elements of making progress.
Got you there. Any other of those 5 questions you'd like to give us a little insight?
I chose between space and Earth.
You did, and you chose space.
No, I think. Did I choose space?
You
Yes,
did.
I did. I did choose space.
You did.
I did choose space. And
Do you want to come back on that?
No, I agree with that. The reason I chose space is that I think space is a frontier. There are many frontiers in science. Space is one of those. But as we explore our frontiers, or as we approach our frontiers, we are going to need all sorts of people to help us figure out, one, what it is that we're observing, or how to live in space. I know you had a question about colonizing. I think we're okay here on the Earth.
Yeah.
But I still think we ought to also colonize. When I say we're okay on there, we're going to survive on this Earth, but we also ought to colonize. We also ought to reach out. And the fact that
who gives us that right to colonize?
Well, so colonize is probably a very poor choice of words. I would say that. I think it's explore and understand. And
explore is okay with me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thank you for that correction. I think we can go explore, and I think we should go explore, because that's part of the nature of our curiosity, and who knows what we're going to find there.
Right.
But
do you know?
No. I mean, I'm open to all possibilities, and I suspect there are sentient beings somewhere else. I just can't imagine not. It
would be so illogical for us to be the only ones, wouldn't it?
That's
in such a vast area.
Yeah. Now, we may not recognize it when we see you.
There you go.
Okay, but that's another story. But here's the reason I chose space, because we're going to need all sorts of people to make it happen. And this is going to sound like a strange juxtaposition, but the highest performing teams in NASA, in any difficult area, are those teams that are composed, that bring diversity of thought, of experiences, and how to address problems. And space is a huge problem. And so the reason I chose space is because that, I think, is a way to help bring everybody into the fold, to help address that. It's
everybody in space.
Everybody in space, but everybody on this Earth to help us do that.
Yeah.
It's the young people that are coming up now, and their experiences, which are so different from yours and mine, and they're going to have to bring that to bear. It's the person who grows up in the country. It's a person who grows up in an urban area, a single parent, families of all sorts. All of that plays into the creative nature of solving problems. And that's the reason I chose space, is because I think that's a huge problem to solve in many different areas: technology, exploration, how we observe it. And so I think that brings the opportunity for folks to participate in that great endeavor, which addresses that fundamental need of curiosity that we have.
Gotcha. And a very practical thing: without space, there would be no Earth.
Well, that's the other thing. You're right.
I try to keep things very small so I can understand them.
Yep.
I really must pull up this comment from Clay saying clever questions. Thank you for that. I did a little research. I had to, and I really enjoyed it. I used to want to be a space scientist like yourself, but I really wasn't the very scientific kind. So it always happened in my head, but it never happened in reality. So let's move to your career at NASA. There you are enjoying, I think, some sort of eclipse.
Yes, this was the great eclipse, or at least the eclipse that went across the continental U.S. in 2017, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, and if you've never, I'll just say, if anybody ever has a chance to go experience a total eclipse, the partial is fabulous, but you got to go see the total eclipse. You got to do it. It's one of those experiences. It's like seeing the aurora. You cannot describe it.
I did witness one total eclipse.
Oh.
It was a very brief one, but I did witness it.
Wasn't it amazing? It's like you just never seen anything like it.
This is at moments like that is when you feel how tiny we are in the whole scheme of things, but also we experience the power of call it the almighty, of nature, of all of it.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. It's just one of those natural occurrences that causes you to be glad you're alive and enjoy the experience.
And in the moment, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. So I guess you guys get a bit more eclipses than we do here in the Netherlands, but because I've seen several posts on your Facebook talking about eclipses to come, which were never here.
Well, eclipses don't care where in the planet it happens. So, now, weather may have something to do with it, but also, I mean, I'm at NASA, so we sit wherever there's an eclipse. Somebody wants to go, and because there's a little research that's associated with it. Not a little. There's a lot of research.
Mm-hmm. Even in your field of work?
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, okay. So my field of work really is studying about the sun and the earth and how they connect to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And in an eclipse is, if that's not an eclipse,
without the sun, moon, and earth in alignment. Yeah. So you must be really happy doing the work you do.
Oh, I love my job. I that's why I couldn't come up with, what would I never do again? It's like, well,
yeah, I know what that feels like. It's like you said, if you choose what you're good at and what you like, you're okay for the rest of your life, and you're not counting the days till your pension starts. Right. Yeah. NASA actually asked a couple of scientists to explain how they, as NASA scientists, look at Earth and what it is that they love about Earth. And I took a clip of that video. Let's have a look.
Earth is my favorite planet.
My favorite part about planet Earth is the ocean.
So my favorite part about Earth is there's life here. We know that there is life here. There's so many aspects of it. I mean, the very fact that we're here.
My favorite part about the Earth is the Arctic.
That feeling before a thunderstorm.
I enjoy the feel of the wind.
When you fly, when you are on an airplane, and you are in between two decks of clouds.
There are so many different environments on Earth that we are just now exploring in the past few decades.
It actually floors me that we have such a large area on this planet that is, basically relatively unexplored.
The depths of the ocean.
To see that life flourishing under the water.
I think it's fantastic.
I feel like the best thing about planet Earth is that it's so close to the moon, and the moon is awesome.
That the Earth has a large moon that keeps its climate stable by keeping its pole stable.
Coming back up to where does our atmosphere end?
The feedback between life and our climate.
How far out can microbes live?
I like how sunlight interacts with Earth.
How that influences the sea ice.
I just love the diversity of life on Earth and all of the places that it can thrive. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. What would you add to that lovely list of things that really resonated with me?
Oh, well, that was great. In fact, so many of my colleagues there that I know personally.
You do? Awesome. Yes. Oh, yeah. That's great.
Absolutely. And so I guess one of the things that I love about the Earth is the variety of regions, not only in the water, but on the surface, on land, where you can go from very hot, dry, arid deserts, which have their own beauty, to very oxygen-starved, above the tree line vistas of mountains and snow, to the dense tropical rainforest, where you're practically breathing water. It's so humid. And that's not to even mention the wildlife that we have, and
the diversity.
And the diversity, and you know, having lived in Brazil, you know that there's a huge amount of diversity, and I mean, I remember even the little pet monkeys we had, the little saguins, or the marmosets as they're called. Just to be able to interact with the animals that way gives us, I think, a better sense of what humans are, and how we should really take care of this planet. And so, again, NASA coming into play, and others, you can best take care of something the more you know about it. And NASA has a huge Earth science program, a ginormous Earth science program, and they are helping us understand what makes this planet tick and how to better take care of it. And it's not only NASA. There are a lot of other agencies and a lot of other parts of the science that are addressing those issues. But the more we understand, the better we'll be able to take care of our home.
Because it's 5 minutes to 12, so to speak, when we talk about the state the Earth is in, at least if we believe what we hear in the news about the climate changing. First of all, should we be alarmed, or is it just a natural course of things? And secondly, do you think people are aware enough that we too are nature, and that, you know, by destroying Earth, we are destroying ourselves?
So I think that we do need to pay attention. I'm not going to say that, you know, 3 years from now, the Earth is going to be on fire. That's not. However, I think there is, I think we've demonstrated that there is an anthropomorphic effect. That is, humans are impacting our climate. And it's part of the fact that we've just become so technologically advanced. We do things to address one issue, but oftentimes don't take into account what the collateral impacts are. You know, carbon footprint, I guess, is one way to describe that.
Yes.
And so we do need to be paying attention to this. I don't think that we are, you know, and this is just Jim Spann speaking. You know, I'm not speaking for the agency, so this is Jim Spann speaking. I think we do need to continue to pay attention to what's going on, and I do like the idea of that we ought to think globally and act locally. I kind of ascribe to that philosophy.
Yeah, how does that help us along? If we think globally and act locally, how does that help us along?
Well, I think locally, you know, just very simple things, you know, of paying attention to what you throw away. Can you reuse stuff more? But also getting engaged in activities to encourage local communities to behave that way. And so, you know, having it driven by the systems level approach for the planet. Think of it as a systems engineering problem, which is a very deep subject. But anyway, that everything is interacted, everything affects something else. So that's the global thinking about it.
What would you say is the reason that humans have lost that ability, at least in large cities, and, you know, where we all live on top of each other? Why is it that we have lost the ability to look at the stars and know that we are part of that?
Well, I think in the cities, unfortunately, you can't look up at the stars and see the grandeur of the heavens. You really have to go away outside of the urban area. I think we get, at least, and it's not only confined to urban areas. I think people who live in very, very rural areas oftentimes don't have a good sense of how to take. It's a different issue there, but I think that all of us need to pay attention. I think I think that we surround ourselves with so many human-made products and human-made environments, gadgets, that we kind of create this artificial environment around us, and we lose touch to the natural environment. And so I think that's, our rural friends have that advantage, that they are much more in touch with the natural environment. And I think those of us who live in urban areas ought to take the time to go and sweat, or go sit on a beach, or go to a mountain stream, or do something outside.
It actually changes your life once you take time to do that stuff.
Yep.
Do you think that you being this combination of faith and science, do you think that those two can work together in
yes,
getting this across?
Absolutely. I think, okay, so I'm from the Christian faith, and we are taught that we are to take care of the world that has been created. And so, I mean, as a person of faith, I think that's part of my obligation. Not because of my faith, but just because that's who people are. That's what we. Well, anyway, I just think that we are called to take care of we take care of our families, we take care of our communities, we take care of our planet, we take care of just nature in general, and just be good stewards. Just be responsible.
Leave something for the generations to come.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How disastrous would it be if we didn't do what you say and just let it go? And we've got these global what do we call them? The global
pandemics?
No. Or climate or climate talks. How do you call them?
Yeah. Well, the global
sustainable goals. That's the one. The global sustainable goals. Yes.
Yeah. So
if we don't, and I mean, Earth will remain, won't it? It will just be different.
Yes. We're not going to get rid of this planet. We can't. We're not going to. The planet is too solid for us. We just live on this very, very tiny little strip. What we're going to do is kill ourselves and kill this very thin biosphere, and so I think if we don't pay attention and continue to create these artificial environments, that our quality of life is going to go down. Before everything goes bad, I think the very wealthy will still be able to live in a particular cocoon, and so I think it's going to cause class differences and economic differences to begin to increase, which is not going to serve anybody well. And
we'll just kill off each other.
I think it's just going to end up being more chaotic, and the quality of life is just going to go down.
Yeah, but in the end, the Earth will spring back and come back in a different form from what we know it, I'm sure, and atmosphere will be different, and other creatures will roam the Earth. That's how I see it. Is that correct?
Well, if a catastrophic event occurs, I think it's true. I mean, we've already been through this before.
With the dinos, for example.
Exactly. However, I don't think that that's our necessary instinct. We do have hope. We do have a way to get along. And I think that that's part of where science and faith comes in. I think that gives the people the hope. And we have to rely on things that are really out of our control, and work together to achieve the good for the all. Again, think globally, systems engineering, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So are you optimistic?
I am. But that's just my nature. I always look for the good, or I try to do that, and I think that's a good way to live. You ought not to be naive and ignorant. I'm not suggesting that, but assess things and assume people have good intentions until you just can't do that anymore. But you really have to start from that place.
Yes, we do. Otherwise, first of all, we'll all go crazy, and second of all, we won't get anywhere.
Yeah.
You are now the space weather lead at NASA. which means that you're the guy who knows all about space weather. What is space weather?
Okay, that's a good question. So just like we have weather on Earth, I'm going to do an analogy first, and then I'll talk a little bit more particulars. Just like we have weather on Earth, we have rain, we have storms, we have pressure differences, we have temperature differences. In space, space is not a vacuum. Okay, there are charged particles. There's dust out there. There's electromagnetic radiation. That's another word for light.
Yeah.
So there's stuff out there, and so that stuff is largely, at least in our planet and in our solar system, and I believe most stellar systems is driven by the variability of that star that kind of controls that particular system. So our sun is our very own star, and it is a very dynamic star. If you look at the sun in different colors or different wavelengths beyond the visible, you'll see all sorts of things going on, and so that really kind of drives the space weather. That determines how much plasma gets. Plasma explodes off the earth, off the sun.
Of the sun, yes.
And that carries energy. It carries fields. It carries charged particles. And if those charged particles strike Earth's magnetic field, our magnetic field responds to that,
and could even be disrupted, I suppose.
Well, it usually squishes our magnetic field or imparts energy into our magnetic field, which then causes all sorts of things to happen within our own. We call it geospace or the magnetosphere. Typically what happens is our magnetic field is compressed near the sun, and it kind of is stretched out on the backside, kind of like a tail or a rubber band. And at some point, just one way to think of it is it gets so much energy and so much stretch that it snaps back and tries to reconfigure itself in a lower energy, and kind of coming back together. And when that happens,
like a rubber band.
Yeah, think of it as a rubber band.
Yes.
And then and what happens that is a phenomenon called magnetic reconnection is what we believe is the mechanism by which that happens. The magnetic fields reconfigure themselves into a lower energy state, and in that process, charged particles are driven along the magnetic field lines because they follow the magnetic field line, and the Earth has a north and a south pole, and so those charged particles enter our atmosphere kind of in the polar regions.
Yeah.
And when they strike and this is all what space weather is. And when it strikes the constituents of our atmosphere, primarily nitrogen and oxygen, it causes those molecules to get excited, because they absorb that energy, and then they release that energy in the form of light, and that's what causes the aurora.
Oh wow. Yes, we won't really needed to hear that. Before we get into what effects a solar storm could have on life on Earth, during my research, I came across a video with that exact question: what would happen if space weather really affected Earth? And I remember we had a near miss in July 2012, when, due to the orbit of the Earth around the sun, we escaped from being hit by a magnetic field like you are telling us about now. So if it had been a week earlier, Earth would have been, catastrophically hit by that magnetism. So this is an animation and of how that looks. Let's have a look. This is after the plasma has...
To find out how this plasma actually reaches Earth, scientists have simulated its approach in one of the largest solar computer models ever produced. The solar plasma heads toward our planet aboard streams of magnetic field, shown in blue. On its leading edge, where it pushes up against Earth's magnetic field, turbulence develops. Cracks begin to open up in Earth's protective armor. The fissures widen. Millions of tons of electrified gas now surge through in jet-like flows that can engulf the planet. Solar storms like the one documented by Richard Carrington in 1859 are thought to hit Earth about every 150 years. At that rate, we may be due for another.
Are we on target for one to actually?
Well,
hit
that's the $1 million question. We don't know when it's going to happen, but it's just a matter of when because of statistics. And as you mentioned, the event in 2012 just did not hit our Earth Moon system, but had it would have. We had others. The reason we know about that is we had other spacecraft, the stereo spacecraft, which are orbiting the Earth, the sun, in counter orbiting. And so what it flew past that, and so we do know kind of the nature and the size and the intensity of that particular coronal mass ejection, as it's called. And so yes, those that will happen.
It will happen. It just will happen.
It will happen as we are becoming a very technological dependent society. The impact of those sorts of things will be of an event like that will be much greater than it was back in when Carrington observed that in the middle of 1800s.
Yeah. So what would happen? How would it impact your life, my life, children's lives?
A ton of ways. And so we can just kind of start listing them. One is it will, if a major storm like that will impact our satellites that provide our GPS measurements, that provide our communications, our phones. We right now are talking. The signals undoubtedly is being bounced up into space and coming back down. All of those spacecraft are susceptible to varying degrees to a very large magnetic storm, and so that's one thing. The other thing is our system. So. And let me just pull on that a little bit. Just think of the communications and the navigation systems. We rely on
airplanes, boats, cars.
A lot of things. Even drilling and mining, they use GPS. All of that sort of stuff. The other thing is that these during a large geomagnetic storms, currents are induced on extended power cables or power lines that race across to transfer the power that in all of our countries. And so what electric fields as they're set up generate a current on those power lines that if the current is strong enough, it will burn up the transformers that are used to change the voltage back so we can use it in our sockets in our houses.
Right.
And so we would lose, the chances are there could be a large power outage over a very large region, a country, continental,
Could it be worldwide?
It could be, but probably would not be worldwide because it is a little bit localized in terms of a little bit more on the night side, just the way the currents happen. But it would be it's a very large area that would be without power, and it depends on how interconnected all the power grids are. You know, Quebec experienced that back in the 80s. They were out of power for a period of time due to a magnetic storm. More recently, in some of the Swedish cities experienced a very local power outage near an airport and that sort of stuff. So we know that this happens, but the sun has been just unusually quiet over the last solar cycle, and so
does that bother you that the sun is quiet?
Well, it's no, it does. It's just actually it was a great opportunity to understand what a quiescent space weather looks like. What's kind of the baseline, because it wasn't very active. So we got to study. We got to learn about the sun. What is the sun like when it's very quiet versus when it's very active? So there's a lot of. It was a good thing.
But I'd be personally be alarmed about the quiet before the storm.
Well, so that clearly that's going to happen, as we've already, a big one will happen. We don't know when it is. The solar cycle, things generally are a little bit more active on the when it's solar max and on the declining side, but big things can happen almost any time. The Carrington event, for example, was not during the solar max, for example.
Right. What do you mean by solar max?
Solar max is a way that we kind of talk about the periodicity of the activity of the sun, and it's based on how many sunspots we observe.
That's the little spots that we see from the sun.
Yeah, they're actually little cooler areas on the sun, and they look dark, but they're just cooler areas where the magnetic flux from the magnetic fields from the inside the sun are kind of breaking through, and it's an indicator of the activity of the sun.
Right. At some point, I was told in school, the sun will explode.
Yeah.
And then what?
Well, okay, we're not going to be around to.
We're not, right?
Yeah, I mean, when it explodes, well, I was going to say the outer atmosphere, but we live in the atmosphere of the sun anyway. I mean, that's what solar wind is. That's what space weather is. So, but the surface of the sun, let's call it, or the part of the sun that we can see will expand to such a degree that it'll actually come out to Earth's orbit. So
it will just burn us all to crisp.
Yeah.
And the rest of the solar system, will it reach that far? Will it go all the way?
I don't know how far. I guess I don't know how far it would go out, but well before then, I think humans will not be around, just because we won't be able to survive even the previous type of environments that will occur before then. But nevertheless, yeah, I mean, we see evidence of different stellar systems that we observe, of suns that are later in their life compared to our sun.
Yeah.
And we see what those stellar systems look like, and that's kind of how we figure out and try to understand what ours is going to be.
Yeah. So nothing to be immediately alarmed about. It won't happen today or tomorrow, but it is something that will definitely be somewhere in the future.
Well, and it's not like we can do anything about it. So
no,
there's nothing to worry about. It's just know that it's going to happen, and we won't be around to
witness it.
Right.
Okay. Well, that at least is some relief. Jim, all your wonderful work has really put you in the spotlight globally, I should think, because on the left picture, we're seeing you at some conference, I believe in Brazil. Is that right?
Yes. That was in ITA, the Instituto Tecnológico de Aeronáutica, the Aeronautic Technical Institute in Sao Paulo.
And there you are speaking probably in Portuguese about what you do.
Yes, I've had the privilege to go down there and speak with them. Actually, we have a joint U.S. Brazil small satellite called Sport, which I initiated. I'm not involved now because up at headquarters, it's a I had to give the principal investigator to my friend and colleague at Utah State, Charles Swenson. But nevertheless, so I had an opportunity to go down there and speak to the Brazilian Space Agency and the Technological Institute.
What did you tell them? What was it about?
Well, I shared a lot about kind of what NASA does in science, but also I talked about space weather. In fact, I have another palestra, another talk I'm going to give in September to them on the current activities that
to the
NASA,
same ITA.
Well, it's to a little bit broader group, but it's being sponsored by actually sponsored by INPE, which is the National Research Institute for Space in Brazil. Right. They're actually right next door to each other, ITA and INPE. But anyway, so that's what I was doing there. And at one talk, I spoke to cadets. At another time, I went and spoke to some high school students. So I've had the opportunity to talk about all the great things that NASA's doing. And encouraging really the young people and the students to really
to get involved.
Pursue. Yeah, if you have an interest in that, it is hard work, but listen, nothing worthwhile is easy.
Isn't it?
Really engage yourself, and it is so rewarding.
Yeah. So what does it take for a young person to have a career like yours? What are the 2-3 things that they really need to get under their belt?
So here's one thing: you got to believe in yourself. You've got to know that you can do this, because it's tough, and there times it does get discouraging. So believe in yourself and have a passion for it. You know, I think that passion oftentimes really gets you through the really tough times, because that's something that you just really enjoy doing. And two, this really follows passion, but I think if you can identify how it helps others, that will give you also a good, strong motivation to continue when the things get tough. And then at the end, you know, when you get my age, you're just reaping the rewards of a lot of people who went before you, and even perhaps seeing some things that you helped start come to fruition.
Yeah.
And so it's really looking at how can you help others? And I just do it through science, and that really drives my passion. That ties into my faith, but that also really drives into what I'm good at.
Yeah.
And so if you can combine what you're good at, what you really like, identify how you can help others, to me, that's a real strong indicator of a place to pursue and put your efforts, and just believe in yourself that you can do it.
And is that the kind of mindset that would help in these times of pandemic and fear and loathing?
I would say even more so nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Here's another thing. Be really smart about what you do. Don't just follow your whims, kind of think, be wise, and also associate yourself with people who are successful and have a attitude toward life. Find those people who are successful and have understood how to navigate through things without, and that have a similar worldview that you do, that, be kind to others, be thoughtful, because there are a lot of very successful people who are not kind and not thoughtful. And, there are some things that you can follow, but look at the person, and would you want to be like that? Well, if they have those traits that I think speak well of humans, then I think you ought to really associate or try to learn from them, even from a distance. Just kind of observe the way they handle things.
And who knows, they might even rub off on you.
That is the idea.
That's the idea. So this attitude has brought you two, not one, but two awards. Let me just show that again.
Oh.
This picture is the one it's called the NASA Distinguished Service Medal, and you got that in 2013. And I believe you had another one. Maybe there's more that I don't know of. The other one was in 2010, the NASA Outstanding Leadership Medal. Congratulations on that. Once again, we're also very proud of you. But I really want to be serious about this. This mindset of yours, Jim, and this great brain that you have, what would you say you're leaving for us and for the children and your grandchildren to come?
Well,
I know it's a horrible question, but just try to answer it as if it's somebody else.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll try to. I think one thing that has served me well, and I think it perhaps is reflected in some of the recognition I've received, is that never forget that regardless of what you do, it's really all about working with people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, NASA is uber technology. I mean, we are all into technology. We have the best toys to play with in the lab, and that's stuff that I love. But at the end of the day, to get a mission in space, to fly your instrument, to launch a rocket, to send humans, and to be able to survive in space, you have to work with people. Yeah. And it's at all levels. And it's from the person who manages the business aspect, it's to the machinist who's sitting on the floor, who's making that part and she's making it in a way that's very detailed, and they have to have that skill. It's to the electrician, it's to the office manager, and it's to the scientist and the engineer. All of us have to work with people. And so if you think yourself as above others, it's not going to work out at the end. And so that's one thing that I learned as a young person in Brazil. Yeah. My dad instilled that in me, and just treat people like people.
Treat people like people. That's profound in its simplicity, and I'm sure that's exactly what you taught these people that came after you, Jim. Your daughter, your son, your grandchildren. Yep. You're a blessed man.
Yep. Yeah.
What is it? What's the one thing you want them to know?
Well, to know that I love them. And, things aren't always great, but, and, during the pandemic, we don't get to see each other that often. And so, know that I love them, care for them, and, to follow the example of the things that, we all do things that, regret sometimes, but follow the things that, that you're true to yourself. And again, it's really all about helping other people. Mm-hmm. Look for, in the way that I've done that, just follow that example, I'd say. Yeah. Respecting others and really pay attention to what you're doing. You do have to pay attention to your work and do a good job and
take things seriously. Have fun while taking things seriously.
Yeah. And in fact, you can't have very much fun if you don't take things seriously, because then the fun just, it just doesn't end up well, because all you do, you're not getting anywhere. So, put yourself in a position to be able to enjoy life and that doesn't mean make money or be well known or anything. It's being fulfilled in what you do and enjoy what you do. Then you can enjoy the non-work aspects of life as well.
Totally clear what you're saying. Here's my sister reacting to what you just said. She's saying totally inspirational. Beijos from Angelique to you.
Well, kisses to you too, Angelique.
Yeah. Jim, we're almost about to round up. Look at the time. I need to know what are your immediate upcoming projects? You told us about going back to Brazil. Anything we should know?
Oh, I got some great things going on. We are getting ready to fly a payload to the moon on the Gateway, which is going to be one of the, as NASA, and in fact the world, under the Artemis program. It's an international program with Japanese, JAXA, the Europeans and ESA, the Canadians with the Canadian Space Agency and NASA, and many other countries joining in. In fact, Brazil signed the Artemis, of course. We're going back to the moon, and one of the first payloads that's going to go and stay in orbit around the moon is called the Gateway.
The Gateway,
The Gateway, Lunar Gateway. And we have a payload we're going to be looking at space weather in the lunar environment, because if we're going to have the next person and the first woman to land on the moon, especially in the polar regions, which is going to be amazing, we need to know what that environment is.
Right.
And so we already have stuff going around the moon. It's not like we don't know what's going on, but we're going to have a space weather package up there that's going to work along with the European space weather package, and the Japanese and the Canadians are helping pull this together. And that's all looking forward to going to Mars. And so,
would you go to Mars? Yourself?
I would. I can say that because I know it's. I don't think there's a shot at doing it, but even though I never was a space cadet or really, thought about being an astronaut, given the opportunity, I think I would. I think I could make it. Not now, but there was a time when I'm pretty sure that I think I could make it.
Yeah, well,
it would be awesome.
You'll just be the big guy on Earth, with the whole picture in your head of how it's got to be up there.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So anyway, we're working on the moon, getting that going. We have a couple of other. We're establishing a space weather program across here in the U.S., also collaborating internationally. But in the U.S., we're really focused on establishing a space weather capability. It's working with other agencies within the U.S. government, and so I'm heavily involved in trying to make that a reality. NASA has a huge role where we do a lot of the research that provides the baseline for all the space weather predictions that NOAA and the department and other departments do.
Yeah,
we provide that knowledge along with the National Science Foundation, and so the NASA part of that is kind of what I'm heavily involved in and trying to establish.
And the commercial guys going up in their rockets.
Oh yeah.
What shall we do about them, Jim Spann? What shall we do about them?
I think it's awesome.
You do?
Yes,
okay.
I do. Listen. I think that commercial entities can do things that the government can't, that NASA can't, because just the environment. It gets back to that diversity thing.
Yeah, but they're doing it for ego. They're not doing it for science. They're not doing it.
Oh, if you're talking about the rocket guys, I'm talking
about the Bransons and the Musks.
Okay, well, so I don't know those people, but I'm sure they're fine people. But I'm really more interested in the technology that they're bringing to the table, and the
money.
They are engaging the community, the overall industrial community worldwide, to really engage. And again, that's creating so many opportunities for people to be part of it. I think it's a good thing.
I'll be lenient. Once they get their egos out of the way, I'm fine with it.
I'm not even going to talk about their ego stuff because I don't have anything to say about that. They bring strengths to the table, but they're people. So what can you say?
Yeah, true. Well, I'm afraid this is what we have time for today. I need to tell the viewers that next month I will be having a very special guest from Jamaica, my friend Kabu Maat-Karu, who is a journalist extraordinaire. She's an activist journalist, actually, working with IRI FM. And I've been listening to her program for what is it? Maybe 30 years now, Running African. That's World Matters from a different perspective, being a Black people perspective, an African perspective, as opposed to Western media, Asian media, or any other kind of media. So I myself am really looking forward to that. That will be on September the 24th at the same time. I wonder, does that, Where are you? Does that interest you in any way, a person like Kabul?
Oh, absolutely. I think that sounds very interesting, especially, again, it's getting that different perspective. We've got to start understanding that people are people everywhere, and they do bring different perspectives. That doesn't make them not people. That just means they're a different person.
Different persons.
And what can we learn from that?
Exactly.
That's part of not having all of, well, you mentioned the ego. You know, it's really all about working with other people. Like I said, you got to understand and got to know where they're coming from, and let's get on the same page and work. You are consistent in what you tell us. I think it's nice that the way that we came back full circle. We started in Brazil. You're going back to Brazil soon for more work. I'm fascinated by what you do, Jim, and I'm really, really tickled pink that you took time to talk to me and the viewers about this. It's going to be online indefinitely, so people can refer to it whenever they wish. You can spread it among your friends. Anything you would like to add that I didn't ask? Anything, a last piece of wisdom? Well, I don't know about wisdom, but I can always say, I do want to thank you for the opportunity. I mean, it's not often that people get to share about the things that they really are passionate and really enjoy doing. And so I just thank you for that opportunity. And I just hope that somebody can take away something that they'll be better off for it. That's, you know, if that happens, hey, I've achieved my goal. Well, it's happened for me, and I've seen some comments to the same effect. Your brother Clay says he's okay with how it went, and other people found it very enlightening and very inspirational, as you saw. I wish you the very, very best, and in everything you do. We'll keep in touch and do more of those Zoom sessions. All right. And we're going to play out with a little gimmick. I found a tune on YouTube called Space Song, and it's sung by a friend of mine, actually, a Jamaican reggae artist called Earl 16, and it's a project by Dubiosa Collective from Macedonia. Let's go out with that and hang on in the Orange Room until we end this program. For now, to everybody who watched, thank you for participating. Thank you for being with us today. September 24th is the next one. Until then, be good, be nice, stay safe. We're out of here.
I'm gonna leave this place. I'm going out of space. I'll be a refugee in different galaxies. I'm gonna leave this place. I'm going out of space. I'll be a refugee in different galaxies.
Guidance is in plan.